All right, guys, Koble back. Today, we're going to talk about the role of the church in medieval Europe. So basically, how the church controlled absolutely everything, economically, socially, and politically. If you want to take notes on a piece of paper, that works out well. If you want to rewind this video as many times as you have to, that also works. If I were you, I would strongly recommend taking notes on a piece of paper. It does very good things for your learning. In terms of how to take notes, so a lot of people just kind of write what's on the screen, as well as maybe one or two things, one or two key points that I say verbally. So you might see something on the screen and then something I add on to it verbally that you think is a main idea. That's generally the best way to take notes. You don't have to write down absolutely everything I say. That'd be ridiculous because I speak a lot of nonsense. But the key points kind of, if you like, oh, that stands out, I should write that down. That sounds important. Things like that. All right, so we're going to start with the first way. So it's like 10 different ways that the church controlled life in Europe. So the first way is that the church is the center of daily life, which means that every single day in medieval Europe, you went to church and your entire family goes to church, maybe even multiple times a day. If there's any community events in the town, they take place at the church. Any celebrations like marriage or a baby or I don't know, fifth birthday, who knows? It's at the church. Any holidays, they're religious holidays, they're at the church. If you go to school, most people at this time could not read or write. But if you did go to school, the only thing you learned to read was the Bible. And it was at the church. The town market, guess where it was? It was at the church. So everything in life is at the church. It controls all of daily life. Cool. That's reason one. So right now, if you want to pause it, maybe write these down, rewind it, and you can add on to anything that maybe I missed, that you missed the first time. Rewind it now if you need to. All right, number two. Oh, this is just some extra stuff. You don't have to write all this down. That'd be a lot. You don't have to write all this down, but it just helps you to learn. Basically, during the Middle Ages, church is the center of life in Europe. That is the big idea. That is the main idea. Every single town has at least one church, and town meetings and every single social event possible is planned at the church. Long story short, if there's something happening in town, it's going on at the church. All right, number two, the church had the power to grant quote unquote salvation. Salvation means like going to heaven. So what happens is, I think it's number two. So what salvation means, it's like, going to heaven. So if you are a person and you're very, 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 very religious, which almost everybody in Europe was, you wanted to be in the church's good graces because you want to go to heaven when you die. That was the idea. So if you want to rewind that, you can. Number three, the church has the power to excommunicate you. And what this means is excommunicate is a fancy word for kick out. If we were in person, I'd have you all kick the air as high as you could because you're kicking people out of the Catholic Church. If you get excommunicated from the Catholic Church, you get kicked out of the Catholic Church, then basically in the Catholic in the religion, you would go to hell because you are kicked out of the church, you are deemed not acceptable, you have nowhere to pray, and it is a bad thing to get excommunicated. So do not it was a big deal at this time if you excommunicated people. Usually they would, if they did this, they would do it like right before killing someone that like committed a bad crime. Right, number four, or I think that's number three. Number four, money. So this doesn't happen anymore, but back then you could give money to the Catholic Church and they would tell you that you are going to heaven because you gave them money. So donations, charity, but farther than that. So this is something that the church did that was kind of corrupt. They would sell pieces of paper called indulgences that we'll get into later in the year, where it basically says you will go to heaven for buying this from the church for $700. Basically, it's like that. It's like a fast pass almost, but for heaven. And it's one of those things that people saw much later was very corrupt and very wrong. But back then, you were not only were you supposed to, you were expected to give a lot of money to the church, so that you could not only stay part of the church but go to heaven. So, yeah, messed up, but people were basically pressured into giving their money to the church. All right, number 5, sacraments. So really fast, a sacrament is like a custom or a ritual that's very important to the religion. So baptism is one of them, you know, confirmation is one of them. The whole bread and the wine thing is one of them. Confession is one, reconciliation, confession is one of them. When you die, you have holy orders. I think, I'm not entirely sure. But like these old traditions and rituals that are core parts of Christianity, the church also performs. So to get these sacraments, you would have to go through the church once again. So just another thing that the church has control over is giving sacraments. If you were excommunicated, you would not receive these sacraments. So would not end up well for you when you die, according to the religion. By the way, I'm Jewish, so like I had to learn a little bit about all of this as well. And I don't know entirely everything about Christianity, but I do know that at this time period, the people running the church really tried to make everything go through the church as much as possible. Okay, next thing that they are in control of is they are in control of education. Any school and university is through the church. If you learn to read, which very few people did, none of you would be reading right now. Then if you did learn to read, though, it would be like Latin. And the only reason you would learn to read it is because you can read the Bible. That is literally the only reason. Not many people, I shouldn't say no one, very few people were literate during this time. So that means very few people could read or write. But if you did, guess where it went through? The church. Okay, next one. Cathedral building. So the churches, because they're so important to life, are also really big, which means it gave a lot of jobs for generations. So maybe you could be like the farmer on the church. Maybe you could be like the painter or the builder or the cleaner or whatever it is. But there's a lot of jobs within the Catholic Church. So you go to church to pray, you go to church to work, you go to church for town events, and then you go home and you sleep, and then you go back to church and you do that until you die. But lots of jobs in the Catholic Church. Fun stuff. Just an economic way that they control life. Am I recording? Oh, thank God I'm recording. Thank the Catholic Church that I'm recording. Next one. Literacy. We did this. Priests are among the few that could read or write, but this is another category. But priests are among the few people that can read and write during this time. And we'll get into this down the road at the end of the year. But what a lot of priests did at the time was, since they were the only ones that understood the Bible, they would misinterpret or intentionally misinterpret what the Bible was saying to benefit their own cause. So maybe the priest is I think the tradition in charities, like you give 2% or 5% or 10% or whatever it is of your money to the church and to charity. But if a priest was like, aha, the Bible says give 75% of your money to me, they would intentionally or unintentionally misinterpret the Bible. But you couldn't say anything because you didn't know how to read for yourself. And we'll get into that in May. Whatever. Next, they are a very large landowner. In this time period, there is not much money. Most wealth is owned through land ownership. So if you own land, it's more important than owning money. A lot of the times when people died, their land would go to the church if they had no rightful heirs to claim it for themselves. So land is a big deal. Next. So this is kind of overall in general. So maybe like write these three down. By the 1000s CE, the church is the largest landowner in Europe, which means that they also collect a lot of taxes from citizens. So they would collect a lot of your taxes. Also, church officials tended to act as advisors to monarchs like Charlemagne, because they knew how to read and can send messages back and forth. So you have this link, you have this best friend buddy connection between church leaders and between kings about communicating with each other. And lastly, as the power of the church grew, you start to see this conflict between church leaders and monarchs. So church leaders and kings end up kind of getting in a little bit of a fight as the power of the church ends up becoming more important than the power of the king. So you start to see like how important the church and popes are to European life in medieval Europe. That is basically it. Oh, last one, Pope. So the Pope is, let me pull it up, Pope Francis. This is our current Pope. He's a nice guy. Look at that smile. Just look at that smile. He's like 90 something years old. Still got a blinging ring on his finger. Just happy as a clam. Look at that wholesome smile. So nice. Anyway, he doesn't wear the big fancy Pope hat like other popes do. But let me show you. But he has the big, golden cross. He lives in the Vatican. He speaks basically for all Christianity. The Pope being the Pope is a big deal. Let me look at an evil Pope. Cool. In comparison, so this is what the old Pope looked like. Look how evil he looks. Doesn't he look just like an evil dude? Like what a terrible dude. Like the other guy was so wholesome. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Nice and nice. Handsome. Beautiful smile. This dude though, where's evil Pope? Evil Pope. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, Pope's in charge of all of Christianity, all of the Catholic Church, and he ends up being very powerful, rivaling the king. Cool. And we kind of know this already, but clergy or priests were advisors to the kings. We already know this. That's how they ended up becoming powerful. If you're interested in how to become Pope, this is a pyramid of how you do it. So the first thing you do is become a deacon, then you become a priest, then you become a bishop, then you become an archbishop. You don't need to know this, but if you ever want to be Pope, this is how you do it. At least back then, or maybe even now. I don't know. The last part of society that they completely control is art. So art is a very big part of religious society. Every single art piece during this time is a painting. So it's based on Christianity. So every painting, sculpture, those beautiful stained glass mosaics that you may have in your church are all religious art. Every single piece of art in this time is religious based. In terms of what mosaics look like, so here we go. So this is the example of what it may look like of mosaics today, but back then they were religious. So it would look like that or that. All right. If you need to rewind, go ahead. That's kind of it. The next step, I believe, of this is doing the reading of, it's not up here, but basically power in the Catholic Church. And afterwards, you're doing your umbrella drawing. So if you need anything, please ask for help. Nothing makes me more mad than when kids don't ask for help and are just like, well, I didn't do it because I didn't know what to do. Well, you asked for help. All right, that's my tirade. Bye, guys.